For those of you that know me well, you know that academics were not always my greatest strength. And my guest today, and he and I shared a class together in college. And he may not know this, but probably because of his help along the way, I think I passed that class, which then led to me graduating from college. So, Mitch, I want to publicly thank you for helping me in my academic journey. So, Mitchell McEver, welcome to the show.
Yeah, absolutely, Hampton. And I remember at the time you saying, "Hey, don't worry. I know you're working a lot on our group project, but we'll take you out to a steak dinner." And that hasn't happened yet, but like I know it's coming. Like I know any day.
Oh my gosh, did I just get publicly exposed for my lack of integrity here?
No, I'm just calling on a favor. That's all. That's all.
Wow. Okay. Writing that one down, I now feel ashamed. Kyle Stewart, wherever you are, we owe you that too. Me and Grayson will make that happen. But anyways, speaking of just crushing it in school, and we're definitely going to get into some of your story, but like any class I had with Mitch, the guy just killed it. And I felt like you didn't even have to necessarily work super hard, which I'd always thought was impressive. But Mitch and I went to Stanford together, and I know when you graduated, can you tell us a little bit about just what you did and part of your journey from there?
Yeah, I graduated, and my senior year, before I graduated, I applied to a Regions program in their finance department. That was a 2 year rotational program, just designed to get you a lot of expertise in different areas of the treasury, asset management, portfolio management, just kind of like a crash course for 2 years. And I applied to that because it sounded like having a job uh, before I graduate would be really cool, and because I was like, this is I guess what I'm studying. I'm studying finance and econ, so I guess I should apply for finance jobs and try to get one of them. So I applied. I made the cuts and accepted their offer. And with most of senior year to go, I was job secured, ready to go work at Regions, uh, pending graduation. And I got to Regions, and my second day of work, I called one of my best friends, JoJo Ellis, and I said, "JoJo, I can't do this." I was like,
Wow.
am seriously considering how bad it would look if I quit at the end of my first week. It was just for me like a job that was incompatible with like what I wanted to be doing for work. And it was something that was, it came somewhat as a shock to me, less so to, I think, the people around me. But I just kind of assumed like, you can do anything for 2 years. I might as well learn about, the banking industry. I had always had kind of entrepreneurial leanings. And so I was like, I guess I'll just get some, big box experience and then go from there. But it was really like hitting a brick wall for me. It was going from a highly relational, community driven college experience with a lot less studying and a lot more friends to a job that was highly data focused, lots of analysis, lots of the job was essentially centered on regulation. So it was, making sure we were doing okay, which did not exactly motivate me as a philosophy. Um, so yeah, I just kind of out of the gates felt like I hit a brick wall.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think it's awesome that on day two you were able to even admit that. I feel like I've been in situations before where I have that gut feeling, but I'm like, I can't go back now. And unfortunately, people might spend entire careers kind of living in what you did, maybe because of a certain amount of money or a fear of stepping away, or because it's what society or their parents might tell them to do. I don't know. From being a couple of years out, have you run into other people, or do you feel like what you experienced is maybe more common than people talk about?
I think maybe the experience of it. I feel like, and for any number of reasons, I feel like I had peers that coped much better than I did with not enjoying their first job. Some of them disliked theirs as much as I disliked mine. And for me, it was like incredible company, incredible culture, like great job out of college. But there was the work was just kind of the antithesis of the work that I wanted to be doing. And yeah, certainly wrestled with like, okay, how much of this is I need to I need to suck it up and, put on my big boy pants, be an adult and work my job. And how much of this is like genuine like struggle with the way that I'm spending my life currently, and I tried to give it as much time as I thought I could bear, and I'm certain there was more drama than I'm letting on at the moment. But yeah, I made it 8 months before I turned in my 2 weeks. 8 months in the 2 year program, so it was definitely feeling like a little bit of a failure. Was definitely feeling like how did I end up here? My friends aren't quitting their jobs, but like I could just tell like the the inconsistency of the work that I was doing with my personality and gifts was just going to be too much for me to overcome long term,
Mhm.
and like there just wasn't going to be a salary or like a career ladder, or like there just wasn't going to be a situation where it was going to make sense for me to stick around, because it just kind of felt like the things that I was built to be doing, I was not really getting to do any of them. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of the basis that I made the decision upon. I was just like, I don't see a way where this job transforms into something that like I feel like helps me flourish, as a human.
Yeah. I think one of the most important parts or one of the wisest things to do in your 20s is to just focus on the direction that you're going.
Mm.
You may not live in your dream job, but get your head out of the water and say, what does my life look like in 5 years, 10 years if I stay on this path? And I think a lot of people maybe are afraid to do that. So maybe you felt like a failure, but I just think that's really wise of you and bold of you to say, hey, I don't think this is for me. And we'll obviously get into what you're doing now, what was in between. But I think it'd be helpful for you to share what we were talking about before, in that what would it have been like had you have had more people in your life who knew you well speaking into the gifts that they see in you? Like, I don't know, I feel like there's more room in our society and our communities to help people kind of go in a lane that aligns with their strengths. You know what I'm
Hmm.
talking about? What we talked
Yeah,
about before
no,
this? Yeah.
yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think, yeah, I think I had a handful of voices, maybe just one or two, that when I was discussing like what job I was looking to apply for and take after, maybe one or two that were like, are you sure you're going to enjoy that type of work? Because we always, expected you in a more relational thing, or I thought you wanted to start a business of some sort. And those voices uh weren't weren't really a concern to me as much. And like the I feel like I have faced so many like are you sure questions over the course of my life, that I was just like, listen, I'm willing to make a for this to not be my dream job. Like I think it's a good job. It's the only job that I have an offer from. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it. And I think yeah, I looking back, it's like, man, I was the antithesis of what that those positions were kind of looking for. Um, and yeah, I wish that I could have had a stronger voice, kind of just sit me down and say like, hey, I know that this is a good job. I know that it is going to be like quote unquote prestigious. I know that it is going to be like, you know, easy to get pats on the back from your parents for accepting, but like I see you more so gifted and geared in a different direction for a different kind of work, and I think you should really like consider doing something different. And I think, especially in those early 20s, we do not want to step on each other's toes. We don't want to like kill one another's dreams or like really be a critical voice. And so like I totally understand why those conversations don't happen, from one 22-year-old guy to another. There's plenty of maturity that I think it takes to have those conversations that, we just didn't have. But I think, yeah, I think it would have served me well at the time to have someone look at me and know me and say like, I think you could do this, but like, I think you could really thrive, and I just really think you're built for this other kind of work. Yeah, I think that would have been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I mean, I knew Mitch in college and you had an unbelievable group of friends. Like you were plugged into a church. I know you had older people speaking into your life. And even still, you who have more of that than most, what I would assume college males, even then, you still probably could have used a little bit more wisdom being spoken in your life. Like I look back and I'm like, there's so much more that I could have used as well. And so I just think that for the listener, if you're trying to make a big decision, maybe you're in college or trying to figure out if you stay in your job or go find a new job, definitely invite people in your life to speak into your blind spots. Cause I think that we have them. And a lot of times people can see strengths in you that you don't know yourself. And I've talked about this a decent bit on this podcast. Are you by chance familiar with the Working Genius, Mitch?
Yeah, a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, one thing I've learned from them is they highly are recommending college students to take it because there's a lot of people like you that are just what the corporate world would call like top talent. Like whatever you do, you're going to work hard. You're probably going to be pretty good at it. For example, being a banker, like you mentally have the capacity to be able to do that. But in the Working Genius, they talk about how every person has certain geniuses and certain frustrations, and geniuses give you life. You could do that 48 hours with no sleep, but frustrations, they drain you. But the key is a lot of people are just kind of good at whatever they put their mind to. And for you, it was like, you could be good in that job, but it was frustrating to you. And the way they talk about like a genius is that it's like pouring coffee in a Yeti mug. It stays hot for a long time. A frustration is pouring coffee in a cup with a hole in the bottom. It's like, you eventually burn out. And so I think so often people say, well, I got offered this job. Like I did good in my finance classes. So I guess this is what I'm supposed to do. But just the Working Genius might be something helpful for somebody to take, or just some element to really understand just because you're good at something doesn't mean that it's going to give you life, if you will. So that's like a little bit of encouragement for the listener there.
Yeah. And there's tension with that, right? Because it's not like we don't live in a perfect world where like I can just sit back and say, okay, well, I'm not going to do any work or take work unless it is like, I feel like it's exactly what I'm cut out to do. Like we can find ourselves on that end of the spectrum, or we can find ourselves on the other that is like, it doesn't really matter what I feel gifted for. Like, whatever you're prioritizing, money, flexibility, like I'm just going to take a job that gets me closer to that end goal. So we can kind of find ourselves idealizing too much, or sometimes like there's room for a little bit more, a little bit more dreaming, I think, that I think is good and healthy. But yeah, don't want to only paint the picture that, we do sit on our laurels until we find kind of perfection. Because yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're exactly right. Like there's not many or any jobs, especially out of college, that you can just roll into and be exactly in your strengths. I do encourage people though, like for example, back to the Working Genius, like two of the elements have to do with just like doing very task oriented work, which is what most jobs you take out of college will be. It's like manager tells me to do this, I do this. And if you find that that's a frustration for you, then like some of the roles within the Working Genius or the geniuses are like the gift of invention. Like that's probably one that you like you like thinking of ideas, or someone who is a discerner or a galvanizer. They like rallying people. It's interesting because there's not tons of opportunities to do that. There's fewer out of college. But I'll get to the point. This isn't about the working genius today, but the point I'm trying to make is I think that so many people look at the short term. Oh, I've got to make as much money as possible and have as much security as possible at 22 years old, that they sacrifice their entire career because they bury themselves in this career path that they think they're supposed to be stuck on. So like,
Yeah.
in short, I like to tell people to learn before they earn. So like, even if you take a much smaller opportunity to just learn something that you are more passionate about, I think if you play the long game, that could turn into something more significant for your life. That, I don't know. I'm kind of going on a rant here about this, but that's kind of my thoughts on that. But I want to hear, so no more regions. What happened next?
So after that, I kind of quit with only a vague follow-up strategy. My aunt is a real estate agent in kind of the greater Birmingham area. So I was like, okay, well, more people is like that. Real estate ticks that box. Like it's more relational. It's like financial transactions, but it's also with a home, and it's like that's a pretty significant piece of life that you're walking with people. I'm like that could scratch that itch. And so like got my license and started going with her to clients and learning the industry, and kind of was just having like that same sense of futility. And I think part of that was uh engaging with people on a merely financial level, or even in a guiding them through a purchase as big as a home. I felt fairly unsatisfied that we were talking about um like a big deal in their lives, but we were also like, I don't know, flying past so many important aspects of life. Like it felt like we were helping them with a big thing, but like the discussion around it was only small talk, and yeah, surface
Yeah.
level. It felt kind of shallow talk, and I was like, okay, I'm with people all the time now, but like the talk is centered around keeping business or driving transactions. And it was just like, I do want to be with people more, but like, I just I don't really love this world either. And so my real estate career, my license is inactive. Spoiler alert. I didn't last very long. But that kind of left me, with even more questions. It was like, okay, I left a job where I was mostly an analyst and mostly doing in-depth spreadsheet analysis, and I'm going to a job that has financial elements, but is very people forward, and I don't like that either. And I started to think like, okay, well, like if I want opportunities for more meaningful conversations with people, like I volunteer at my church, I'm volunteering in the youth ministry, like maybe I could go to seminary. Like that sounds fun, but I've never had a reason to go to seminary. Maybe like I should consider working at a church and studying the Bible. And I don't know about being, a pastor, but like it would be fun to go. And so I really had no next steps. And so I was like, okay, I will go to seminary. I will go to Beeson, which is at Samford, and I will study for a few years, and we'll just see how that goes. And you were talking earlier about like the learn before you earn, and that was kind of the step I was taking, only really half knowing it when I went to Beeson. And I think one of the hardest parts of that for young folks is like kind of the social cost that comes with that. Like it is definitively not cool to tell people at a birthday or a party or whatever that, yeah, I quit my stable good job and tried another job. It didn't really work. So like, I'm going to go study the Bible now. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Like, there's a social cost there. There are awkward conversations. It is not a fun headline to tell a bunch of people. And it comes with plenty of explanation. Like, well, like, this is why I'm doing it. Like, I'm feeling the need to self justify to people. Like, well, yeah, well, of course this makes sense. And like,
Mhm.
honestly, it kind of made sense, but it kind of didn't. Like, it kind of just looked bad. Um, and, you know, plenty of people admired the move to seminary, and plenty of people were like, oh, that kind of seems like you're wasting your time, you know? And there is a social cost that comes with that. And I think with what you were talking about with being willing to take on experiences, jobs with less glamour or prestige for the pursuit of learning and gaining experience, like, yeah, that does come with a felt social cost. And like, that takes a willingness to, like, I don't know, maybe look like you don't know what you're doing for a few years, and
Mhm.
being willing to be misunderstood by people. And you know, that is not always very fun. But yeah, as far as like long term, it's like it makes a ton of sense. But I think that's a big reason why um, people might stay on one path or heading in one direction for a long time, is because like it takes admitting that you either made a misstep, or you were wrong about something, or like maybe you couldn't hack the work that you were being given. It like it kind of shows a little bit of weakness, of maybe a little humility, to say like, this isn't where what I want to be, who I want to be, what I want to be doing. So I'm gonna do something different. Like, there, that it's not fun. It's not fun.
Yeah, and I appreciate you admitting that. I mean, and even admitting, like, in social situations, that it was hard and that you were trying to justify things. It makes me think, how many times in my life have I, you know, shared something and then try to like make justify it to the person, and then it's even worse because the I feel like the older I grow, the more I realize that people aren't really thinking about me. Like, they probably don't care that much. Now, I obviously care about your life, but then it just ends up being more awkward because we like go on this rant about, well, I'm doing this and that, and then I just end up feeling like embarrassed whenever I do something like that. But like, I love the mindset of you just wanting to learn, going to seminary. Um, so tell us about that experience, what you learned, and I guess even where you are now.
Yeah. So when I got to seminary, uh, Beeson is a really awesome place. Most of my class that I was kind of coming into the program with had the stated intention to either pastor a church, or maybe they were certain they wanted to lead worship at a church, or they were certain they wanted to pursue a PhD afterwards in some subset of Old Testament studies, New Testament studies. Like, there were plenty of people with a lot of definition, and most of them were pretty definitively headed to ministry. Like, it was mostly a seminary for would be pastors. Um, and I felt like a bit of an imposter in that regard, because I was there, um, and I was like, I maybe like I might be a pastor. I might be, you know, someone who works at a church, but I don't really know. Like, I never had more than um, a vague maybe as my answer. And like, again, like, that doesn't play very well in social settings. Like, I'm at a grad school, and the primary training for that grad school is working, you know, with or around a ministry, and I don't want to do that. So what am I here for? And it's like, well, like, at worst case scenario, I'm setting aside a couple of years to study the word, study God's word,
Yeah.
learn uh, how to handle it respectfully and well, how to teach it. Like, it was like, I know that this time is valuable, even if I don't go into ministry. But like, half the time when I say that out loud to other people, I don't believe it, or I'm insecure.
Mm.
Because it was just like another one of those things where I was like, I felt the need to justify why I was doing what I was doing to anyone who asked. It didn't matter if they were a close friend or I just met them on the street. Like it just felt I had high levels of insecurity about doing that because it I felt like I was just kind of aimless. And for someone like like previously I'd always had my next step, and at Beeson it was, I don't know what is after this, but I know that I should go to class tomorrow. Like that seems like my next best move. Like that was literally it. Um, but really, that kind of like you know thoughts of a 5-year plan, 10-year plan were out the window, and it was like, okay, what do I have today or tomorrow? And that kind of reductionist approach to my future was really kind of what led to me creating Whammy with Tate Sutter, Sanford alum, friend of mine. Was kind of being forced into, what do I want to do right now, or what's an opportunity that could be here right now, even if it's for like a fun hobby or a project that I want to give a crack at. And for us, it happened to be about halfway through the seminary program. Uh, we had always enjoyed like doing little creative projects together, um, but always had trouble with long term payoffs. It was always like uh, needed something short and sweet. So we decided to go to my sister's coffee shop in Georgia, um, and roast some coffee, brand it, label it, bag it, and bring it back as Christmas presents for our friends. And that was not born out of, I'm going to make this a business. It was just born out of like, that's creative and fun and unique and feels like we're cut out to do those sorts of things. So yeah, let's do it. Like didn't think twice. It was easy. Um, and then in that same vein, like we were like, that was fun. Like we'll do it again. We'll do it again. We'll go roast coffee again. We'll have a better bag. We'll brand it better, and maybe we'll sell it just to like break even. We don't need to make money, but just don't want to, pay hundreds of dollars out of pocket. So we did it again, and then we did it again, and I started to kind of flirt with the idea of like, this is fun, and like this is what I'm doing in my free time while I'm in grad school, and I'm not making money off of it. It's literally, it's just bringing me joy to like bring coffee with fun branding that's a little silly back to like my community. Like that's really, I feel like I'm flourishing when I'm partaking in that. And so like I started to get kind of like, oh well, like maybe everything cuts right and this could be a thing. But what came around was uh, June Coffee in downtown Birmingham. Their owner Jimmy, he was upgrading his roaster, and he called us and was like, "Hey, coffee roasters are hard to find. Do you want to buy mine? I'm upgrading." And we were like, "Yeah, like that. We need one of those to if we want to keep going." So yeah, and then got in touch with Or Mercantile through a friend of a friend, and they were like, "We're looking for someone to serve coffee here like every day." And I was like, "Well, this was last summer." I was like, "I can't do that now, but like if you gave me 6 months, like I could probably like move towards that." And it was just this series of little baby steps as the Lord provided, space for me to walk into, where it was just like uh, I was doing the things that like I couldn't stop doing, the like the ideas and the creative pursuits and the fun entrepreneurial uh, dreaming. It was like those were the things I couldn't stop doing, and they kind of just snowballed into a real business, which was like, oh, you just kind of look up and you're like, that was crazy. Like, and now we're open 6 days a week, 6:30 to 3, and serving coffee that we roast, and it's like I couldn't have planned or pictured or told you that this was what I wanted to do or should have done, but by just kind of taking lots of little baby steps that sounded good, like here we are. So yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. Love the story. And even to rewind, I really like one of the things that you said. You said 5, 10 year plan. That was out the window back when you were in seminary. And sure, it can be good to think long term. Earlier, I mentioned, hey, let's make sure we're spending our early years, especially focusing on the direction our life is going. Like I think that can be a helpful tool. But one of the best pieces of advice I've been given, especially early on, is just say, hey, go work, go spend your time where you're going to grow the most. And for you, if the worst case scenario of going to seminary was studying God's word, which for me and Mitch is the most important thing we have on this earth, then great. Like I'm sure you grew an enormous amount, and that gave you time to sit and reflect and wrestle with God. What do you want me to do? And that's one of the things we talked about earlier of, you mentioned this, it's so many people want to know, like, what does God have in store for me? My church did, like a prayer thing, like 21 days of prayer. And, one of the pastors said that the most common prayer was a word that started with the C, clarity. I just want clarity. That's what everyone says. Like, what do I do? And I think one of the things he said is like, God gives us enough clarity in order for us to take the next step, but not too much in order to eliminate the need for faith. Um, just because he wants us to trust in him. He's not necessarily just going to write it all out in front of you. And I'm seeing themes of that in your story. So I want to stop talking because I want you to keep talking, but I was just encouraged hearing that. I mean, do you have encouragement to the listener that might be in their divinity school right now or in their seminary of like, man, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like what you said. One of uh, my professors, Dr. Gordon Bowles, who has become like a mentor, a friend. He is officiating Maddie and I's wedding in a couple months. Like, just
Wow.
has really like changed me through his influence. He put it succinctly like, we don't want faith, we want a job. Like,
Mm.
and that really kind of cuts to the heart of it, is like, we want the things, we want the certainty, we want the pain free destination where like everything makes sense and everything is clear. But when we want that, we're we're in a way trying to rob ourselves inadvertently of like presence and time spent seeking the Lord's face. And like, there is wrestling that occurs in the Christian life that is unavoidable. And it's unavoidable because it is for like God's glory and our good. And but it is like, it is just painful. And like, I think, yeah, we obviously we don't want pain, we don't want struggle a lot of the time. And yeah, what we want is a job. So I think
Yeah.
God, does put obstacles and pain in our path that we might look to him and know that he is God. And I
Mm.
think we can say that that sucks, or it feels like it sucks a lot of the time. Like, we can say, God, this makes no sense. I do not see why you are doing this, and I don't understand it. Like, that is a that is a prayer I've prayed so often over the past few years. Is one of like, I know God, I know that I trust him enough to be utterly honest with him. And right now, my honesty is, I have no clue what is going on. And I'm tired of duking it out with adversity and like all these different things that are preventing me from getting what I think I want, which is, you know, a lifestyle of doing things I love with people I love, yada yada. Um, but God is denying that to us, not in order just to like, not just to make us strong, or not just to like give us faith, but like for our greatest good, which is to know and be known by God himself. And it's like, it's okay if that doesn't feel comforting right now. It's okay if that doesn't, it's okay if you can't yell like, Yeah, I don't want employment that I love. I don't want people that I love. Like, I just want God's presence. Like, if you can't yell that right now, like, welcome to the club. Like, that is a statement of utter humility that, like, only the Lord can form. And I think, like, Beeson was also a time of growing in so much honesty with God and being okay to say, like, Lord, I don't know why you had me at Regions. Like, I that was really tough mentally, emotionally, and on my soul. And I don't know why you have me at Beeson, where uh, I don't think I'm going to be a pastor, and everyone else does. And like, I don't know why I'm having these conversations. You know, like that honesty with the Lord and the honesty and the struggle, like, really, I think, showed me his face and his love in a new way that I would not have seen without struggle and pain and honesty, you know. So yeah, I forgot where we started there.
No, everything you said, I love. And it's for someone like me, for someone like you, probably anyone that is a human, because we want comfort and we want easy. Sometimes for God to get our attention, like he has to allow valleys and challenges, and sometimes they have to be really hard, to where we understand that there's actually nothing we can do on our own to get out of it. Because for me, if I look back on my life, it's like I had little challenges, like little valleys along the way, but my like work hard, gritty nature was like, oh, I can figure this out. I can get out of this. And I, air quotes, did throughout my life. And then like you go through really hard things and it's like, whoa, like God, I need you. Like I've got nothing now. And I think that that's his kindness, to really bring us to him. So it's cool to hear just your story there. And we could probably keep talking for a long time, but I definitely want you to talk just about Whammy and the experience of being a small business owner now, and just what that's been like. And then even if you don't mind sharing, you're pretty new into this. I'm sure you wouldn't say, "Oh, I've arrived now," but it seems like there's a level of contentment in like where you're seated now, and more certainty, maybe.
Maybe,
Maybe
maybe,
that's okay.
yeah. So I mean, I I really do love Whammy. So Whammy is essentially the philosophy behind it is I want to produce really high quality coffee, um, for anyone and everyone, and especially the people local to where Whammy is. Um, but high quality coffee that is approachable and fun and a little unserious and a little silly. Um, because I think that brings us some life. I think that helps us not take ourselves too seriously. The prime example is really from the second edition of bags. There was a free toy sticker on the outside of the coffee bag. And since then, every bag of coffee sold has a toy dinosaur in it. And I
I love
wanted
it.
people to uh, both appreciate that the coffee was good, but also like laugh a little, you know, and like kind of connect to their youthfulness a little bit again, and like just like yeah, just laugh at something silly. And like so many times just that can kind of take us out of our heads and like take our eyes off ourselves and look up, and like you know, it can be just such a refreshing thing. And I think about like um I don't know. I haven't been in the coffee industry very long, like a year and a half. But it's an overwhelming place if you don't know the lingo. You know, like it's an overwhelming place if you don't like your coffee black, if you don't want to taste much coffee. Like it can be an intimidating place. And you know, I always wanted like my parents, both of whom like love their Keurig coffee, love their Cold Stone Creamery creamer, and don't want to taste much coffee. Like I wanted to build a place where like they felt like they could come and order and like not feel dumb and not feel like silly or like they don't know anything, but like be welcomed and like kind of enjoy the lightness and the like community fostering that like approachable and accessible coffee can be. Because I really think that, you know, coffee is such a communal beverage. It's such a gathering point, a touch point for people. And like, for me, it doesn't make much sense for it to be, to take itself too seriously. It's like, at the end of the day, this is a drink that helps us gather, and that's a beautiful thing. And yes, want it to taste good, but I also want it to give it to people exactly how they want it, whether that is 5 pumps of chocolate or whether that is like, you know, a straight 2 ounce shot of espresso. Yeah, I want to give people coffee just how they like it, and I want it to force them a little into a little playfulness, a little youthfulness. So we still have a toy in every bag. Um, yeah, our branding is lighthearted. It's fun. Yeah, I feel like that's born out of kind of my personality and my life philosophy of, I feel like in my roles in friend groups and in my communities, like usually my role is I want people to take themselves like a little less serious. Like we don't have to, we're not going to throw away things that are tough or hard issues or like professional decorum altogether. But like, I think there's a bit of playfulness that we just naturally lose as we get more advanced in life and have more responsibilities at work. Like it's just easy for the youthfulness, the playfulness to kind of get squeezed out, you know? And so I want Whammy to be a place and a brand that kind of can help people kind of connect back with that part of themselves, and like, yeah, to just laugh a little bit and kind of add some youthfulness back to their day.
I love it. I think you're right. As we grow older, as we gain more responsibility, we probably take life even too seriously. And I know you're definitely providing just experiences for people to maybe laugh or not feel intimidated when they order coffee. Oh my gosh, I'm finally maybe learning the lingo after a few years, but I feel like every time I walk up to a coffee shop, I'm like, can I get just give me black coffee, and then
Yeah,
so
and then you're sweaty and you're nervous and you run out of the coffee shop, I'm sure.
yes,
It's
yes,
definitely coded lingo, for
yeah.
sure. But yeah, and as far as what it's like to run the small business now, like, I mean, the days are like still filled with like plenty of struggle. Like we're just now getting to the point, you know, and it's been 7 weeks open full time, but we're just now getting to the point where like weekdays are worth it and profitable. And
Mhm.
like we're just now getting to the point that people who live around it know it's there. Like I've had plenty of coffee shop days thus far where I have, you know, 6 customers over the course of 9 hours. And it's like, that's disheartening. Yeah. And it's not like, that doesn't make me want to pat myself on the back and like be like, oh, yes, like I know that I made a good decision with my life and vocation. But like, there's an element of both like belief in what I want Whammy to accomplish, like that giving people some lightness and some joy and like helping them step out of the seriousness, like the scrutiny of self a little bit, like can kind of help them. I mean, I think that well placed joy and playfulness can like, yeah, lift their eyes off themselves to the Lord. It can lift them to the beauty around them, to the beauty in a cup of coffee. And like, I believe in that. And I think that is worth pursuing. And that, like, I think most days I still don't think I could imagine doing something else. It's like, for even the days where we've done $30 in revenue and I've been like, I am wasting my time. I'm like, I really wouldn't trade it for anything else. Like, I love getting to build it. I love getting to create. I love getting to engage people. that come in, and I love getting to, make them laugh, enjoy a cup of coffee. Like it's just, it does feel in a way like what I was kind of made to do. And, Whammy's the medium it's taking now. Like if Whammy closes in 6 months or it's open, until forever, like right now, like it feels like what I should be doing. And that is exciting. It is exciting to feel like you are doing something that you were kind of uniquely cut out for.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it does not. There have been just as many days when I'm like, yep, this is, it feels like I'm striving and working so hard and putting in all my time, and the output is pitiful. So like, but it definitely helps to feel like that kind of work is very connected with who I am. That helps it keep going. And just that, like, I wandered enough and had a non-linear path, that I'm like, okay, like, I do feel like God just kind of opened up a door for me to do this. And so I guess I'm going to do it. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And a bit of encouragement. How often do you meet someone who's, at least in the eyes of the world, wildly successful? You ask them their story and like, I kind of messed around, and then, I was 33 years old and I started doing this. Like, guys, Mitch is what, 26? 26. And so I think that sometimes there's this pressure to have your whole life figured out. And Mitch is a prime person that I would want on this podcast, because when I talk about like wake up and lead, I feel like a lot of us coast and drift through life, especially early on in our 20s. And Mitch has really woken up, if you will, and said, like, I'm not going to necessarily just take the good, stable job. And like, I want to do something that I feel like aligns the most with my strengths so I can serve people to the best of my ability. And so, like, I just really admire your willingness to try things and take risks. Like, if there's ever a time to take a risk, it's now. Like, you have less responsibility than you ever will. So I'm just really encouraged by you. And I know that someone listening to this is could very well start something, or at least be very encouraged by you. So really appreciate you joining me.
Yeah. Thanks. Those are kind words, Hemp. I appreciate it. It was fun to chat. Felt like it flew by. We were only here for a couple seconds, but yeah, any of those things I would talk to you about for, hours. But I'm glad we got to run around for a little bit and share some stories. So
Yes,
thanks for having me.
sir. For sure. And I didn't tell you this before. It's kind of cheesy, but I just have to do it. I need you to tell everyone to wake up and lead. So I'm going to say it's time for you and me, and then you say to wake up and lead. Sound good?
I suppose I don't have enough time to think of a rebuttal, so I'm in.
I got him. All right. It's time for you and me
To wake up and lead.
Yes, sir.